Hey everyone, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and bear with me a little bit. I'm a bit under the weather today, which is why there was no podcast or video yesterday, but I don't want to let that slow us down here because I want to talk about some of the key takeaways from the Big Four Tech meeting in front of the U.S. Congress, and this is actually rather interesting, and quite frankly, I think it really underscores what they are doing in terms of being rather predatory. Now, here are some key highlights along with my notes on and my thoughts on each of these. And so let me get this out of the way here. I am going to be focusing on Amazon and Facebook because they've basically been grilled the hardest, not to say the others weren't challenged by Congress, but those two were really taken to task. And quite frankly, they admitted some things that scream antitrust. Now, with that, let's start with Amazon. Now, Jeff Bezos came under fire by lawmakers basically over the company's alleged use of third-party seller data in developing its own products. Now, earlier this year, the Wall Street Journal had reported that Amazon employees had accessed sales data from independent sellers on its marketplace to help the company develop competing products for their own private label, Amazon Basics, and a multitude of other labels as well. Now, Amazon has a policy of barring this practice, but lawmakers like Representative Pramila Jayapal of Washington basically focus on the company's enforcement of that policy. And so Rep. Jayapal said, "Let me ask you, Mr. Bezos, does Amazon ever access and use seller data when making business decisions?" Bezos responded, and I quote, "I can't guarantee you that the policy has never been violated. We continue to look into that very carefully. I'm not yet satisfied that we've gotten to the bottom of it, and we're going to keep looking at it. It's not as easy to do as you would think because some of the sources in the article are anonymous," referring obviously to an article that broke that story. But here's the thing. Before the journal report came out, Amazon had told Congress that it doesn't access sales data to help guide its launch of its own products. And to quote Nate Sutton, Amazon's Associate General Counsel, who said at a hearing last July, and I quote, "Our incentive is to help the sellers succeed because we rely on them. They have many options, so we apply the same criteria to both, and we do not use their individual data when we're making decisions to launch private brands." Obviously, Bezos just backtracked on that, saying, well, we're not sure actually, and obviously articles have broken since then, basically proving that they have. Now, Jayapal cited documents that would be Representative Jayapal cited documents obtained in interviews conducted over the committee's investigation that call into question Amazon's ability to enforce these policies essentially against their employees going in and looking at this data from their third-party sellers to see what's working. And to quote her, the Congresswoman, the committee has interviewed employees that say these breaches typically occur. So you can set the rules of the game for your competitors, but not actually follow those same rules for yourself. Now, Bezos also had a tough interaction with Representative Lucy McBath of Georgia over Amazon's ability to quote unquote systematically block sellers from selling specific products, citing direct testimony from a seller who believed she had been blocked. And so Bezos responded to that saying, and I quote, "I do not think that's systematically what's going on. Third-party sellers in aggregate are doing extremely well on Amazon." Now, that may be true, but there have been article after article of sellers basically saying, I had X product, I was just killing it on Amazon, and then suddenly Amazon is basically putting out the exact same product with their same brand for half the price, and Amazon has obviously the cash on hand and manufacturing contacts to be able to do something like that in mass, basically putting them out of business. This is one of the reasons why Jeff Bezos was put on very hard, or rather was hit rather hard in Congress, because this has essentially been proven, and now the back-end data that when that story broke, that their employees were simply looking at the data to see which of these third-party sellers were just killing it versus the products that Amazon was then releasing in those categories that literally mirrored what those killing, those third-party were killing it at. It's basically conclusive, and Bezos essentially, because he's under oath in front of the United States Congress, didn't say we don't do that. He said, well, it's hard for us to tell, and on and on and on. That is predatory behavior, and he knows it, and I think that's a huge, huge thing that we really have to talk about. Now, the next one I want to turn to real quick in terms of key takeaways is Facebook as well. Now, there was an interesting tactic that was used by Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook to try and actually mitigate the concerns that everybody has about Facebook being being predatory and antitrust and all of that. And so Mark Zuckerberg essentially kind of went off the script that everybody expected him to use and pointed out how Facebook is actually lagging behind a number of their competitors, including Alphabet, which owns Google, Amazon, and Apple, and on and on. So Zuckerberg said to Congress, and I quote, "In many areas, we are behind our competitors. The most popular messaging service in the United States is iMessage. The fastest growing app is TikTok. The most popular app for video is YouTube. The fastest growing ads platform is Amazon. The largest ads platform is Google. And for every dollar spent on advertising in the United States, less than 10 cents is spent with us." Now, this is a good tactic for him to use, I think, because it basically spreads the burdens out to the other people that he is saying are ostensibly his competitors. But it doesn't actually address the fact that the service that Facebook offers its users, where it is generating its revenue by data mining them to sell and hone advertising, doesn't have a direct competitor that can come close competing with it. It also does not address the fact that he has basically been ripping off products, and we will get to that. Some members of Congress apparently also, and this is a huge problem that we have, didn't grasp that because they don't really understand the technology at all that Facebook is, which led to a rather amusing exchange. Now, almost at the start of the entire hearing, Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner of Wisconsin accused Facebook of temporarily suspending the account of Donald Trump Jr. And so Congressman Sensenbrenner said, "It was reported that Donald Trump Jr. got taken down for a period of time because something he put up on the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine. Now, I wouldn't take it myself, but there is still a debate whether it's effective either in treating or preventing COVID-19, and I think that this is a legitimate matter of discussion, and it would be up to a patient and their doctor to determine whether hydroxychloroquine was the correct medication. Given the circumstances, why did that happen?" Mark Zuckerberg looking very much relieved, just like the last time he was in front of Congress alone in 2018 and got just horrible, worse than softball questions, responded, and he loved this question, "Congressman, well, first to be clear, I think that you might be referring to what happened on Twitter, so it's hard for me to speak to that, but I can talk about our policies about this. We do prohibit content that will lead to imminent risk of harm, and stating that there is a proven cure for COVID when there is in fact none, might encourage some to go take something that could have adverse effects." Apparently, Donald Trump Jr., the president's son, had posted that hydroxychloroquine was some kind of cure on Twitter, and so Twitter had banned him for 12 hours. But this really underscores a serious problem that we have in the leadership of the United States. They have no freaking clue how to talk to these people. Last time Mark Zuckerberg was there for the massive Cambridge Analytica data breach where this all broke and everybody knew their privacy was violated, half the questions were basically on how does he make money. It was utterly ridiculous. And I had tweeted at the time that if Zuckerberg had actually been quizzed by the grandchildren of our Congress people and senators, he would have been screwed. They would have had no idea. He would have had no idea how to respond to that, but our leadership really doesn't know that. Now, that said, there are a few that are in the know here, and once again, Congresswoman Jayapal she went after Bezos, but she was right on point with Zuckerberg as well, and she grilled Zuckerberg over his company's practice of acquiring competitors and adapting popular rivals within Facebook's infrastructure. And in a heated exchange, Jayapal pushed Zuckerberg on the details surrounding Facebook's purchase of Instagram, which quite frankly is rather interesting. And if you didn't know, Instagram founders have essentially left Facebook as they were giving, obviously they sold it for about $1 billion or so, but they left citing just irreconcilable differences with how Facebook performs its business operations and all of that. And so basically, to quote Congresswoman Jayapal, "I would just like to remind you that you are under oath and that there are quotes from Facebook's own documents, that basically speak to the acquiring of Instagram in 2012 for $1 billion, and Facebook was actually in the process of developing its own mobile camera app to compete with Instagram called Facebook Camera." And so Zuckerberg said and admitted under oath, Congresswoman, that's correct. I've said multiple times that we were in the space of competing with building mobile cameras with Instagram, but that is what they did at the time. Now, Jayapal went on to detail an exchange between Zuckerberg and Instagram founder Kevin Systrom that ultimately led to Systrom believing that Zuckerberg would go into quote unquote destroy mode if he did not sell Instagram to Facebook. And basically, this is something that Zuckerberg denied, but the text messages have been leaked. And this is kind of where I want to end this, because this really, I think, underscores one, where Amazon has been just predator ripping off their own third-party sellers. And this is, again, according to testimony in front of Congress and everything else that I just read you, not to mention article after article on this you can go read. But it also really underscores the predatory practices of Facebook as well. And I have the text messages from Systrom talking to another person in Instagram as well prior to the sale. And so this is what he wrote. Okay, so not surprisingly, Zuck pinged me to say, quote, I'm not sure if this is a good idea yet, but I think maybe Facebook should buy Instagram. What do you think? End quote. Systrom goes on to say in this text message stream, I obviously want to discuss with you before I reply to him. And then the person replied, got it. And he said, you know him better than I do. And then A, he will go into destroy mode if I say no. B, they're listing out the options. B, will he understand if we choose to raise, meaning raise capital instead? C, will he understand that I don't want to shutter the project and that doesn't align with what Facebook does with companies? And then a little subnote was probably, and probably also if we just don't engage at all. And then the response was, no, he'll go harder into destroy mode then. What I think he would most likely want to see for Instagram is to turn it into a standalone mobile Facebook Photos app like Beluga turned into Facebook Messenger, meaning we are now all going to research Beluga and possibly the predatory practices that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook used to do that. But the point is that what the Congresswoman was saying, and what a lot of articles are saying, is that essentially Systrom said, I don't want my product destroyed. I don't want to basically lose my shirt on this. So selling to Facebook is literally our only option because they have the money, the power, the wealth, and the capability to basically do a competing thing and then just go after us hard. Maybe deny, let's say, them advertising access to the platform, which Facebook has done before in various ways. So this is a huge, huge thing that we are talking about. But as they are getting grilled, I think we have to understand that as these companies continue to consolidate their stranglehold on whatever platform and anything else that it is, it's really stifling free competition. And if you're a fan of net neutrality, then this is something that is in that vein, in the sense that they are making sure that the starting line isn't necessarily equal because they are trying to consume and own the starting line. And so if you've got a great idea, they're simply going to buy it off you as opposed to letting you develop it naturally on your own. Now, this is different back in the days where, let's say, you had two competing oil companies that would put out the exact same product, because these companies are significantly diversified in the sense that they do a lot of things. Facebook has a messaging app, they have Instagram, they have a video sharing service, they have all of these things, and so while they're number one in some categories and they're not in others, they can continue to acquire to continue to push that forward. And so I think this is something that's very interesting, especially coming from somebody who does believe that we should have an equal starting line but not an equal finish. So I think this is good. Good that they got grilled, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And let me know what you think, because after this video/podcast, I'm probably going back to bed. Like I said, I'm not feeling so hot, but that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.